Welcome to The Explainer. We're tackling a big question today. Why does Pakistan's future feel so, well, stuck? It turns out the answer has a lot to do with who owns the land. And believe me, the roots of this system go deep. So why would a map from 100 years ago still matter today? It seems a bit strange, right? But the thing is, the answer is actually pretty straightforward. The entire power structure in rural Pakistan, it was literally designed during the British colonial period. And that map, the one that decides who's in charge, has basically gone unchanged.
Okay, to really get a handle on just how massive this issue is, let's start with one number. Just one, 33%. That's how much of Pakistan's farmland is controlled by just the top 5% of landowners. Think about that. It's often called the 533 rule. And it's just a staggering concentration of power and wealth in the hands of a very, very small group of people.
Now, to really understand the challenges Pakistan faces today, you have to go back to the beginning. We need to see how this whole system was built. And let me be clear, this was no accident. It wasn't just something that happened over time. It was an intentional, deliberate strategy. So, back in the Mughal era, land grants were basically temporary. You did a service, you got some land. Simple. But then the British came along, and they had a totally different plan. They created a whole new class of people, the zamindars. These were permanent, hereditary landlords. And their job? Well, it was pretty simple. Keep everyone in line and make sure the money kept coming in. They were engineering a loyal elite to serve the empire. And you can see how this happened over time, right? It was a deliberate two-century project. First, you have the Permanent Settlement Act in 1793, which basically locked this whole system in place. Then you get the Canal Colonies project, which was like pouring gasoline on the fire. They gave the best, most fertile land to the families who were most loyal to them. And guess what? Those actions created the exact same political dynasties that are still in power in rural Pakistan today. Okay, so that's the history. But how does the system actually hold on today? Let's get into the mechanics of it. Experts have a term for it, quasi-feudalism. It's not the classic feudalism you might read about in history books. It's this weird modern hybrid that actually works within a democratic system, all while keeping its nasty, exploitative center. And at the heart of it all is one thing: land. Whoever controls the land controls everything. But here's the crucial difference from, say, European feudalism. There's no sense of obligation from the landlord to the peasant. None. No protection, no justice, nothing. It's just raw exploitation, pure and simple. It's a system designed to trap people, the tenants or haris, in this endless cycle of debt that their children and their children's children will inherit. And this is where it gets really fascinating when you start comparing things. In Europe, feudalism was like a contract, right? There was reciprocity. If the lord didn't hold up his end of the bargain, the vassals had a right to push back. In Japan, you had bushido, this intense code of loyalty. But the Pakistani model, it has none of that. It's all about exploitation. The landlord gets all the power with zero social or legal responsibility. It's really in a class of its own. So how do they keep this grip on power? Well, it's through what some people call a hybrid kill chain of control. It's an interlocking system. The landlords control the local police, the Thana, and the local courts, the Katchery. So forget about getting legal justice if you're a peasant. Then there's the patwari, the guy in charge of land records, who can be bribed to just change them. And in the most horrifying cases, you have actual private jails to enforce bonded labor. It's not an exaggeration to say it creates a state within a state. And this right here. This shows one of the most tragic results of all this. Take a look at that gap between rural and urban literacy. That is not an accident. That is a feature, not a bug. It is a tool of control. See, if you keep the rural population uneducated, they stay dependent. They can't challenge you. They can't leave for better opportunities. It's how you guarantee you have a workforce that can never escape. Okay, so this system is obviously terrible for the country. So the big question, the one you're probably asking right now, is why hasn't anyone fixed it? I mean, there have been decades of so-called land reform. What happened?
Well, as you can see here, every single attempt at reform was basically sabotaged from the inside. The very people it was supposed to rein in were the ones who dismantled it. Back in 1959, they just used legal loopholes, like transferring land to a third cousin they'd never met. Then in the 70s, the reforms were just weak and implemented by politicians who were big landlords themselves. But the real death blow, the final nail in the coffin, that came from the courts. And here it is. This is the moment everything stopped. In 1989, a Supreme Court bench ruled that putting a limit on how much land one person could own was, quote, un-Islamic. That was it. That was the judicial death blow.
With that one ruling, the government's ability to do any kind of meaningful land reform was completely paralyzed. And that's still the legal reality today. So if every reform has failed, you might be thinking, is it hopeless? Well, not necessarily. And that brings us to the most critical part of this briefing. What do we do about it? There is a blueprint for change, a real one that could finally start to dismantle this system and let Pakistan move forward. The key thing to remember is that you can't just fix one part of this. It's like a chair with 4 legs. You have to go after all of them at once. The legal pillar, the economic one, the administrative one, and the social one. Otherwise, the whole thing just stays standing. So let's get into the nitty-gritty. What does that actually look like? Well, here are some real actionable ideas. We're talking about things that go right to the heart of the problem. First, digitize all the land records to cut out the corruption. Second, hit large, unused land holdings with a big, progressive tax. And third, legally wipe out the generational debt that keeps people in bondage. And let's just zoom in on one of those for a second. The land records. Getting rid of that old, corrupt, paper-based Patwari system and moving to a transparent digital one, that is a total game changer. I mean, it's not just some boring tech upgrade. It's a direct assault on one of the landlord's most powerful tools of control. It would finally give real security to small farmers. And so at the end of the day, it all comes down to this one question. We have the blueprint. We know what needs to be done. The solutions are there. The real question is there the political will? Is there the courage to finally take on a system and the powerful people behind it that has defined Pakistan for generations? And that's where we'll leave it.